Boldwood presents Faking It, written by Portia MacIntosh and read by Karen Cass. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Chapter 1. I love a man in uniform, I tell the man standing in front of me. Is it obvious, from that terrible cliched line, that I've always been crap at flirting? Everyone is bad at it when they're a teenager, trying to get the attention of whichever horrible teenage boy they have a crush on, only for him to break their hearts because he prefers his PlayStation and pretends he doesn't care. But when you get into real adulthood, the power is supposed to shift. Men have to grind to get the attention of women. Flirting as a grown woman should be as simple as existing, surely. Unless, of course, you believe the old binary bullshit perpetuated by rom-com movies that all women are either a Beyoncé or a Bridget Jones. A total goddess or completely hopeless. To be honest, I never really understood what was supposedly so unattractive about Bridget to make her so solidly single for so long, which made me think the spinster trope was probably a figment of fiction too. But anyone looking at me now, attempting to flirt while this poor chap cringes in front of me, would almost certainly file me under Bridget. Thanks, he says awkwardly. I'm surprised he doesn't hear this more often. Don't all women love a fireman? Then again, I suppose people don't say it out loud, do they? They just buy the sexy calendar and hide it in a drawer. This clearly isn't working, and it's reminding me why I'm single. But to be honest, I hadn't been all that worried about it until the events of today. I often wonder who decided that two's company and three's a crowd because, for some reason, they completely overlooked one. It's not as though I need validation for my life choices. It just would have been nice to be included, that's all. It's not all bad being a one. I get to decide what I want to do and when I want to do it. I, and I alone, always get to choose what's for dinner, what I want to watch on TV, whether I want the radiator on full blast or the window wide open. I am my own person, free to do whatever I want, accountable to no one apart from yours truly. I grew up being told by everyone I knew, and every bit of media I consumed, that I had two options. I was supposed to find myself a fella, ASAP, settle down, get married, have kids, you know the drill. Or I could take the more modern, feministy route of shunning all of that in favour of being a ball-busting career woman who doesn't need a man or kids, who battles her way up the career ladder to smash the glass ceiling and lives her best self-sufficient life. There's a third route no one talks about, though, and it's not so much the route I have chosen, more the road I wandered down, and now I think I'm probably too far along to turn back. I know I'm not alone as one of these third routers, being in my 30s, unmarried with no kids, not owning my own home, bouncing from job to job. There are plenty of us out there, but many are too embarrassed to admit it. Well, of course they are. It's the pitying looks that follow the prying questions. Oh, has it not happened for you yet? As though I've lived my every waking moment on this planet just searching for a man, any man, with enough sperm to keep me popping out babies on the regular. And for what? Sometimes people say, but it's your job to keep the human race going. Well, guess what? I didn't apply for that job, and I'd probably suck at that job as much as I do my actual job anyway. I just wish people would stop making women feel like failures for taking the third route. You never know a person's personal circumstances. You don't know why they don't have kids or why they haven't met the right person yet. And I promise you, the further you wander aimlessly down the third route, the harder it is to turn around. I'm just me, alone, with a low-paying job, a crippling rent-paying addiction, and no one or nothing to fall back on. And sometimes when you are just you, alone, things can go wrong, and there's no one around to have your back. That's when you end up in big messes like I am right now, with no option but to try and, as a last resort, flirt your way out of sticky situations. I used to stay up late to watch London's Burning when I was a kid, even though I was far too young. I say because of course I do. What else am I going to do when my flirtatious advances don't work, other than double down. Soldier, soldier too, loved that, I continue, but doubling down doesn't help my case either. Did you watch that? I'm 25. He tells me without a flicker of emotion. I'm not even sure he knows what I'm talking about. Oh my God, this practical baby standing in front of me is 9 years younger than me. It always blows my mind when I meet people who are so much younger than I am, but seem so much more mature. Like a real adult. I'm 30-4, and I certainly don't feel like one of those.
Sorry, when I asked you to tell me everything, I meant about your flat, not about your childhood.
The fireman explains. I think he thinks I'm stupid. Stupid is preferable to arsonist, though, right? That's another thing pop culture has misled me with. I thought women were supposed to be able to use their sexuality to get them out of any bind. But nope, more bullshit. The fireman is tall, broad, and handsome. Exactly like the fireman in the calendars, but he's the only one here who makes the cut. The rest of the team, all rushing around me doing their jobs, are a mixture of older men and a couple of women. I'm not fetishizing this man's job, I'm just saying the calendar must be a really small sample from all over the country, rather than representative of firefighters everywhere. And now I see where I'm going wrong. You know how they say that if you wind up in prison, you find the biggest person and you punch them in the face? Well, what I've done here is try to flirt with the hottest fireman. And failed. But give me a break. It must only be 6 a.m. It's not even light out yet. Oh, I say, as though I've just had some big epiphany. I cough to clear my lungs before I continue. The icy cold January air hurts my insides. Right, yeah, well, I guess it's set on fire.
Yes, he says ever so slowly, as though he were talking to an idiot. We're up to speed on that part.
I rent an absolutely tiny flat above an Italian takeaway run by a man called Antonio, whose cuisine is about as Italian as he is, which is not at all. He's Welsh, but he seems to think pretending to be Italian is good for business. Antonio is my landlord, and kind of a sleaze, so he's always either ticking me off for something I'm doing wrong or flirting with me for something I suppose I'm doing right. The only thing my sexuality gets me is free pizza, and the only thing free pizza gets me is an arse that jiggles when I run. I imagine. I definitely don't run. Even just now from a burning building, I'd probably call it more of a jog.
Just talk me through what happened with the fire, he suggests. Before, during, and after.
Oh God, where to begin? Well, it was the smoke billowing. Billowing? Billowing?
Billowing,
the fireman insists. He's starting to get frustrated with me now. Looks like I've burned my bridges as well as my flat. Right, billowing. It was the smoke billowing into my bedroom that woke me up, so I grabbed my phone, ran outside, called you.
Okay, so before you went to sleep?
Before I went to sleep, I say slowly, stalling when I have one big realization that gives this whole saga a new and horrifying spin. I went out with some work colleagues last night, and things got a little messy. The night out was in honour of Greg, the new guy, to welcome him to the team. I'm a receptionist at a digital agency. Not that I'm all that sure what they do, but it doesn't matter too much to me, I just answer the phone. Not everyone likes to stay out late, but I do, and Greg clearly does. So when I finally called it a night at 3 a.m, he ran after me, asked if I lived locally, and when I said I did, he asked if he could crash on my sofa, because he had missed his last train home. At first I thought this might have been a chat-up line, but he really did just come back to my place and make himself at home on my sofa, which was perfect, because even I know you don't sleep with a new guy on his first day. So I left him there, sound asleep. I went to bed, and then the next thing... Just a quick question, I say casually. If someone had been, say, fast asleep on the living room sofa while it was on fire, would you be able to tell? The fireman's eyebrows shoot up into his helmet.
If someone died in the fire, would we be able to tell?
He asks in disbelief. He doesn't wait for a reply.
Yes, we would be able to tell if someone died in the fire.
I try my hardest to mask my relief that Greg didn't burn with the sofa, but I exhale so hard I probably blow away the last of the smoke. To be honest, I'd forgotten about him, and with my bedroom door being nearer the front door than the living room is, I just charged straight out as soon as I realised the place was on fire. Thank God he'd already left.
If someone was in there, do you think they could have started the fire before they left?
He presses on. I wonder, only for a few seconds, what the new guy could possibly stand to gain from trying to burn my flat to the ground. I notice the fireman glance over my shoulder. I follow his gaze to a firewoman who has something blackened and smoky in her hands. I'm no expert, but it looks like what used to be the waste paper bin from my living room. "We found what started the fire," the firewoman says. "Looks like a butt caused it." I bite my finger to try not to laugh at something that is undeniably funny, but it tastes like charcoal, so I quickly remove it. I know this isn't funny. This is awful. Everything I had, even though it wasn't much, was in that flat. But if you don't laugh, you just cry and cry and cry. Thankfully, most of my stuff was in the bedroom, like my clothes and my laptop.
"Do you smoke?"
the fireman asks me. I don't, but the man who was sleeping on my sofa does. I did tell him if he wanted to smoke, he needed to stick his head out of the skylight.
"Well, it looks like he's discarded his cigarette end in your bin before he left,"
he says.
"Figlio di puttana."
Not all that Italian accent interrupts us. Antonio appears from behind the fireman, seemingly popping up out of nowhere. He's on the short side with hair so black it had to come out of a bottle. He's obviously rushed over here but still found time to slick back his hair before he left the house. I swear he must style himself exclusively on cliched characters from mob movies, which is way off the mark for what he's trying to achieve. "Antonio, buongiorno," I say cheerily, as though that's going to get him on side.
"Don't you buongiorno me, Ella," he replies.
He sticks a stereotypical A sound on the end of several of his words, which frankly even I find offensive.
"You have set fire to my bloody flat." "We think it might have been her house guest,"
the fireman tells him, helpfully, which is surprising given how unhelpful I've been to him.
"And what did I bloody tell you about house guests?"
Antonio starts, getting angrier by the second. He's definitely got the stereotypical fiery Italian temper down to a fine art.
"After your last party, I tell you, no more house bloody guests. And here you are, burning my bloody business to the bloody ground." We were actually able to contain the fire to the living room. Ella raised the alarm almost immediately,
the fireman tells him, but Antonio is having none of it.
"I don't give a damn. This one is nothing but trouble,"
Antonio replies.
"I'll leave you two to talk for a moment,"
the fireman says. I don't blame him for removing himself from the situation. I know you have to be pretty brave to do this sort of job, but you'd have to have a death wish to be standing between me and Antonio right now. "Look, Antonio, I really am sorry," I say sincerely. "I had no idea. It was a friend from work who missed his last train. I was just trying to help him out. Obviously, I can't pay you back for the damage straight away, but I can over time. I'll even work shifts in the pizza place on an evening. Just, please don't kick me out. I have nowhere else to go."
"Bella, bella, bella,"
Antonio says. He softens as he wraps an arm around me. Oh God, he always calls me Bella instead of Ella when he's about to say something sleazy.
"I'm sure we can come up with some way for you to pay me back,"
he says as he begins to rub my shoulder. Ugh! I can't help but blurt as I shake him off me. Forget it! I'd rather be homeless. Antonio snaps back to angry mode.
"Then pack up your shit and get out of my flat," he shouts.
I sigh. I don't really have much choice then, do I? You see, this is what you get for trying to do someone a favour. It literally blows up in your face. I saved Greg from a night on the street or a ridiculously expensive taxi, and this is what happens. I wish I'd left him to fend for himself now. As soon as the fireman tells me it's safe to go back inside, I head upstairs to gather my things. It's funny. The place always had a smell that I really didn't like, a sort of greasy kitchen smell that drifted up from the takeaway below. Now that the entire flat stinks of smoke, it's hard to remember why I hated the original smell so much. The living room isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I imagined a big black hole with everything inside it burnt to a crisp. I must have raised the alarm pretty quickly because the damage is mostly concentrated around the sofa and the table. Thank God I did raise the alarm. Thank God I woke up. This is why I'm starting to think that maybe I do need someone to share my life with, if only to decrease my chances of dying in a fire. I make my way to the tiny pea-green bathroom to gather up my things. I quickly wash my face and try to brush my teeth, except my toothbrush tastes like smoke, so it's probably more hygienic to forego brushing my teeth right now. I blast my long blonde hair with half a can of dry shampoo, drag a brush through the knots, and cake on some makeup before moving on to the bedroom. I sniff out my least stinky work outfit, and through a combination of spraying it with deodorant and whipping it against the bed, try to get the smell of smoke out. I am the most presentable and the least smelly I can humanly be right now. I'm also weirdly fortunate enough that all of my belongings fit into 3 bags for life. They're big ones, at least, but it's not much to show for 34 years on this earth, is it? Back outside, the fireman takes my details in case they have any more questions for me. I think he feels a bit sorry for me now. He gives my shoulder a squeeze as he reassures me that it wasn't my fault and that Antonio's insurance should see him right. But I still feel bad. Antonio, I call out cautiously as I head towards him outside the takeaway, which he's opened up for firefighters to go inside and check.
Ella, if you are even thinking about asking me for your deposit back, no, forget about it, piss off, he rants in an accent that would make Super Mario proud. I just nod thoughtfully for a second before heading for my car. I load my bags into the back, sit in the driver's seat, and cross everything I have that it will start today. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. My car, like my life, is riddled with problems. The battery runs flat for almost no reason, and it's leaking some kind of liquid. Come on, I say as I go to turn the key. It makes a sound as if it's in physical pain every time I try to start it. I'll just have to get the bus to work. At least I can store my stuff in my car. I have some cash, not much, but enough for a couple of nights in a hotel while I figure out what my next move is. But right now, I have to get to work. I absolutely can't be late today. I already have a few late marks on my record, courtesy of my car. Now that I'm homeless, I need my crappy job more than ever. Some start to the new year this has turned out to be. We're only days into January, and already things are going so wrong. See, this is why I never go for that New Year, New Me rubbish. Because getting pissed and singing Auld Lang Syne isn't the magic recipe for a new beginning people seem to think it is. New year, same me. I just hope things get better as the year goes on. But I can't quite shake the feeling that it might be all downhill from here. Chapter 2. After a completely mortifying conversation with my usual mechanic, in which I innocently suggested he pull out and see if it's wet underneath, and he told me I should probably think about getting a new car now because he's patched it up so many times, I managed to catch the 2 buses it takes me to get to work. But I'm very late. I slink through the door at Agency XXL, where I've been working for the past 6 months, and as I sit down at my desk, I notice a note from Sylvie, the HR lady, asking me to go and see her ASAP. This means heading through to the other side of the office, which will be hard to do unnoticed. We're oh so impossibly modern here at Agency XXL. The office is practically a caricature of a millennial open-plan workspace. You know the type. There are more beanbags than there are chairs, and every other room is for headspace.
We have 4 different machines for making drinks, but you can never just get a coffee. It's all macchiatos and lungos, and no, I don't know the difference. I don't mean to sound so cynical about it all. It just doesn't feel authentic, especially given how this company is owned by rich, severely out-of-touch old men. Nipping at the heels of rich, old and out-of-touch is Declan, our head of digital, which means he's our first boss in a long line of bosses. He runs the show on the office floor, but all that usually seems to entail is floating around the room like an over-caffeinated butterfly. His favourite job of all seems to be breathing down my neck. Apparently, a good receptionist is the heart of any office, and he thinks I'm a bad receptionist, so he's always on my case about it. I won't tell you what part of the body I think he is. Declan spots me from his wall-less office in the centre of the room. Our gazes meet for a couple of seconds as I hurry through the room. I notice him leaning forward in his chair, as though he's weighing up if he needs to come over and speak to me immediately, but I don't look at him for long enough to see what he does. If I can just make it to the sanctuary of HR. It's actually one of the few rooms here with a door on it. "Morning, Sylvie," I say brightly. Sylvie is probably the eldest, regular, lowly employee here, but she's cooler than the rest of them put together. She must be in her early 60s, but you wouldn't guess by looking at her bright purple hair and her kooky clothing. I knew she and I were going to get on well on my first day when she sat me down to give me the talk about workplace relationships. But instead, she just stuck the DVD of Fatal Attraction on. This might seem lazy, but have you seen Fatal Attraction? It worked a charm. Even if there was someone here who I fancied, I'm pretty sure that film would put me right off. "Oh, don't you morning Sylvie me," she says in a deep Yorkshire accent. My favourite thing about the Yorkshire accent is just how warm and friendly it sounds, until it doesn't. I'm originally from Cheshire, but over the past decade I've travelled around a lot, working all over the country. Not because I have a fancy job that requires travelling or anything like that, just because I've never really settled anywhere for long. Nowhere really feels like home. Even home didn't feel like home. That's why I couldn't wait to leave. I'm pretty sure Sylvie is going to tell me off right now, but it's hard to worry too much when her accent feels like a double dose of Yorkshire charm. "You're fucked," she tells me. OK, it just got easier to worry. "What do you mean?" I ask with a faux innocence. "They're letting you go this morning," she tells me. "You were on your final warning." "I take it this is because I let Greg stay at my place last night?" I start, a little annoyed because that was me stupidly trying to do a nice thing for someone that blew up in my face. Honestly, he missed his last train, so I said he could stay on my sofa. You laid on the no workplace relationships thing pretty thick with Fatal Attraction when I started, but Greg, he didn't boil my bunny. He burnt my flat to a crisp. Sylvie just blinks for a few seconds. "Are those sex things?" she asks me ever so calmly. "What? No," I reply quickly. "I let him sleep on my sofa. He literally set my flat on fire, that's all." "Well, you're getting the sack because you're late again," she tells me, glossing over the whole fire thing. "I'm late because of the fire," I insist. "Oh, Ella, you really are the biggest pain in my arse," Sylvie tells me. "Come on, let's go speak to Declan." "Oh yeah, that'll help," I say under my breath. Declan has wanted me gone for weeks, and now he's got his excuse, I guess. The reason he doesn't think I fit in well here is because I don't subscribe to the office culture. When we finish early on Fridays, I don't want to stay as late as I would if I'd worked a full day just hanging out in the work bar, drinking trendy beers and playing table football. I'd rather just go home, but apparently that makes me not a team player. I don't know. I'm just a receptionist. I do a grindy job for no thanks, and even less money, and I just want to go home when I can go home, you know? Sylvie walks me from her office to find Declan. He's at one of the chill stations next to Greg's desk, chatting with him and 2 female employees. The 2 men are throwing brightly coloured juggling balls between them. Greg seems as though he doesn't have a care in the world. "Declan,
I've had a chat with Ella, and there are indeed extenuating circumstances this morning," Sylvie explains. I squirm awkwardly on the spot behind her, like a kid who has sent her mum into school to yell at her teacher for being mean to her. I also feel weirdly self-conscious that we're not doing this in private. But I've heard Sylvie say before that it's always better to air things in front of other employees because it makes for a fairer outcome if the bosses think the other workers are listening.
"Oh?"
Declan says.
"This should be good."
"Is she the one who's always late?"
I hear Greg ask the girl next to him. I frown at him, acting as if he has no idea who I am is not the move of a gentleman. Greg and the 2 female employees either side of him are giggling to themselves as they listen in. In fact, now that I'm looking around, it seems as though everyone has gathered for a floor show. "Yes. She says it's this one's fault, actually," Sylvie explains, gesturing towards Greg. Oh God, we're really doing this here. "What?" Greg says, changing his tune. He's not laughing now. Oh, Greg. Poor Greg. Look at him, with his cool guy haircut and ironic moustache. He's wearing a plaid shirt, which, well, don't they all at digital agencies? I am somehow too cool to be uncool enough to be cool here. Even saying that gives me a headache. Greg is the type, though. They probably gave him the job the second they laid eyes on him, and I'll bet he thought he was going to swagger into work every day, drink flat whites, play table tennis, and sit around on a beanbag talking about the latest episode of whatever it is everyone is watching. I was so glad when Game of Thrones ended, because wherever I worked, it was all they talked about. And let me tell you, to someone who didn't watch it, the conversations about it were too nonsensical to follow. But there's always another show for me to be out of the loop on. Don't get me wrong, it's not that I'm against watching TV, but it turns out you need about 10 different TV subscriptions. I guess most people here can either afford all the streaming services to keep up to date on the latest water cooler TV, or they're savvy enough to stream it illegally. I tried to stream The Handmaid's Tale once a few years ago, but instead I saw so much weird porn I've never dared try again since. Plus, knowing my luck, someone would pop up from behind my sofa and slap some handcuffs on me. If I still had a sofa, that is. Greg is blinking at me at a frankly rather alarming rate. It's as if he's glitching. I do feel kind of sorry for him, this being his first week and all, but you know, if you're that worried about making a good impression, don't burn people's flats down.
"What did Greg do?" Declan asks. "He's my nephew, so I'm highly surprised to hear this."
Ah, good old nepotism. Always nice to see it still alive and well. Ella says he set fire to her flat. Sylvie blurts out, casual as you like. He did what? One of the girls next to him says. I think her name is June or April, something monthly. Whoa, 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 whoa. Greg sounds like a steam train. I think he might have started a fire in my flat when he stayed over last night. I offer, kind of weakly. Well, I feel seriously outnumbered, and I don't think being my often ballsy self is going to get me anywhere in a situation like this, and I know better than to flirt with anyone here, don't worry. No, he didn't, the girl next to him informs me very matter-of-factly. He definitely did, I say a little more firmly. I turn to Declan. Smell my hair, it stinks of smoke. Declan pulls a disgusted face at the thought of smelling my hair. He really didn't, the girl insists. Greg is my boyfriend. He slept at my place last night. I look at Greg and narrow my eyes thoughtfully. I was so sure that it was him who asked if he could crash on my sofa, but now that I think about it, oh God, I know I'm terrible with names and faces, but this has to be my grandest faux pas to date. Oh my God, Greg, I'm so sorry. I guess I mixed you up with someone else. I was so sure it was you.
Ella, seriously, Declan says. You come in here, stinking of smoke, accusing my nephew of burning your house down. That's it, you're fired, effective immediately. You'll still get paid, but we don't want you to work your notice.
It's finally happened. He snapped,
sacking me right here on the spot in front of everyone. Declan, please, it was just one little mistake, I insist.
But it isn't just one little mistake, is it? Was it one little mistake when you ate a piece of Alex's birthday cake before we'd sung happy birthday to him?
He asks. Oh, come on, it was a cake with a piece already missing. How was I supposed to know that was part of the design? I protest.
Is it one little mistake when you constantly mix up Kerry and Sarah?
He continues. I don't think that one is fair either. It's not that I don't know who is who, they just look so alike. I turn to the woman standing next to me. Don't you think Kerry and Sarah look really similar? I'm Sarah, she tells me, completely straight-faced. Oh, is about all I can say. Right, okay, so you want me to...
Yes, please leave, Declan says. And don't forget to take that awful mug with you.
I had guessed that my fucking Mondays mug, like me I suppose, didn't gel with the office culture. The truth is that I haven't ever felt as if I fit in here. And I definitely don't feel as if I've made any friends. But I didn't think that mattered because it's just a job, right? It's just the thing that keeps a roof over my head. Or it was, at least. Losing my flat, my car and my job in the same day is a new low even for me. I feel my phone vibrating in my pocket. Isn't it always the case that when you think things can't get any worse, that's when things really, really get kicked up a notch to be the absolute worst they can be? It's my sister Emma calling. Fantastic. That's just what I need. We've barely spoken in years, so I doubt she's calling to talk about what happened on Emmerdale last night. Usually when she calls, it's with bad news, but I don't think we have any relatives left who could have died. Perhaps she's calling me to tell me she's having another baby, which may as well be bad news because, as wonderful as that is for her, having a twin sister who is super succeeding at life when you're doing so terribly just serves as a big fat reminder of what a failure you are as an adult. The fact that Emma has such a wonderful life just goes to show what a genuine mess I've made of my own. We're twins. We had the same start in life, the same upbringing, and I can pinpoint the exact moment where we diverted so spectacularly. And it's the reason we're not all that close anymore. Still, if she's calling me, it must be something at least kind of important, but I can't exactly answer right now. I grab a small cardboard box from the post room and do the walk of shame back across the office with all eyes on me to my desk so that I can pack up my things. Of course, I don't really have any things, so I plonk my mug, my notebook and a handful of random office supplies in the box and head for the exit. Well, I'll just have to find something else. It's as simple as that. Sure, I could worry about being jobless and homeless, but what good would that do me? Now isn't the time to worry, it's the time to be proactive. Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, I'll land on my feet this time. Chapter 3. Emma Cooper is my identical twin sister, but the similarities between us start and stop at our appearance. We really do look alike. Well, we did. I'm not sure if she's changed since the last time we saw each other a decade ago. When we were kids, our own mum would struggle to tell us apart, although that changed as we got older, when she insisted that, despite us still looking so alike with our long blonde hair, our bright green eyes and our dimpled cheeks, she could tell us apart because I had something in my eyes that my sister didn't. She never said what exactly, but she never made it sound like something good. Mum said that Emma and I were like Jekyll and Hyde, as though we had one personality between us that split in two. Emma was the good kid and I was the bad one. I suppose I did act up quite a bit as a kid, and I definitely rebelled as a teen, but I don't think you could blame me given the way we were brought up. Emma and I never met our dad. He passed away in a car accident a matter of weeks before we were born, and credit to my mum, she found a way through a terribly tough time. Suddenly without a husband, and with 2 screaming babies she'd never bargained on raising alone. I don't remember at what age I realised what my mum did for a living, but I don't really remember a time before I felt as if I couldn't get away from it. My mum was Auntie Angela. Yep, that one, the famous agony aunt and life coach. She wrote books, hosted a radio show, and was a regular on daytime TV. Her speciality was parenting advice. You think you had embarrassing moments as a kid? Try having your mum talking publicly and honestly about the mortifying experience that was your first period on national television. Growing up in a small village meant that everyone knew Mum and everyone knew me. So when she would tell stories about her own kids, she was talking about me or Emma. And given that we have pretty much the same face, it almost didn't matter which one of us she was talking about. It would always be embarrassing for both of us. Sure, we had an amazing life growing up, as far as living in a massive house and having lots of money goes, except Mum never lavished us with everything we wanted, and because she was always working, I think it's pretty safe to say a series of nannies technically raised us. But while I felt mortified and suffocated and kind of unloved, Emma found it much easier to roll with it. She loved her life. Then again, Emma was the most popular girl at school, and she had the hottest, richest boyfriend. In the kind of village where I grew up, money talks. Everyone is living in massive houses, sending their kids to private school. In fact, everyone there is so well off that it's almost an equaliser. Everyone is loaded, so the only way to truly rise to the top is to have the biggest house, the nicest car, go on the swankiest holidays, and have the sexiest spouse. I absolutely hated growing up in that world. I couldn't wait to move away. Emma, on the other hand, she just let it absorb her. Now she's the rich mummy with the big house and the flash car, and her rich boyfriend is now her rich husband. She seems happy with it. So, good for her. But I could never have amounted to that. At least, not without the financial leg up she had. I don't want to think about that before I speak to her, though. It will only rub me up the wrong way. It's only the second week of January, and I'm sick of winter already. I hate the cold and the dark. I find it so depressing. I'm sitting outside on a bench after stupidly forking out £4 for a caramel latte that I thought might cheer me up, and glaring at my phone as I tried to talk myself into calling Emma back. She's so hard to talk to sometimes. Instead, I decide to look up the cheapest nice hotel, or maybe the nicest cheap hotel, in the area, but as I type on my phone, Emma calls again, and I accidentally press accept immediately. Shit. Hello? I say. Ella? Hello? She says. It's so weird to hear her voice. Sorry, were you at work? I'm taking my break, I reply. Is everything all right? Are the kids okay? Oh, yes, they're fine. We're all fine, she says. And you? I'm doing great, I lie. Taking care of yourself? She goes on. I sigh heavily, but not so she can hear. Yes, I am, I reply. So what's up? The phone goes silent for a few seconds. Emma, are you still there? I need a big favour, she eventually says. She sounds rather casual for someone who just used the words big favour. I'm a little taken aback. Emma needs a big favour from me? What on earth could she need from me? What could I possibly do for her that no one else could do? Oh God, you don't think she needs a kidney, do you? That's all I can think of, that she needs me for my DNA. Ugh, I'd have to give it to her as well, wouldn't I? We might be estranged, but she's still my sister. It's just that if there's anyone on this planet who needs both their kidneys, surely it's me. With my terrible luck, I need a backup everything. If I'd had a backup flat, car, or job, I might not be sitting here right now. Oh, is all I say. I don't try and make a case for needing both my kidneys just yet. Instead, I wait and see what she says. I've got myself into a spot of bother, and you're the only one who can help me, she explains, still so casual. Basically, I'm going to prison. I laugh wildly. Emma, look, I'm sure it's wine o'clock and you're bored about the house, but some of us live in the real world and have jobs we have to do. I'm really not in the mood for jokes right now, I tell her. I'm not kidding, she says quickly. Ella, seriously, I'm going to prison. What on earth are you going to prison for? Did you use self-raising instead of plain at a WI meeting or something? She doesn't laugh at my joke. Ever since we got the new Range Rover, I don't know, it's massive, I have trouble parking it, she says. So, I started trying to see what I could get away with, parking on a double yellow here and there, but only where it wouldn't cause any problems for anyone. I had a few fines come through, but I read online that you could just ignore them and they were too minor for them to chase up. But I guess that's not true. Oh my God, Emma, you're literally a millionaire. Just pay your fines, I say. Honestly, it's too late for that, she replies. This went on for quite a while. I was way into double digits as far as offences went, and the fines really mount up when you don't pay them, and saying I would pay them all immediately didn't help. It just made it seem like I thought I had enough money to put me above the law. The judge is making an example of me. He's given me 6 weeks. My sentence starts tomorrow. Holy shit. Seriously, I wish Mum were alive to see this, I blurt. If either of us was going to end up banged up, she probably would have bet every penny she had on it being me. Ella, this isn't funny, she says. I need you to come here and be me. To what? You know how important image is here in the village. No one in the community can know I'm going to prison. And I certainly don't want the kids knowing. I'm mortified and it sets a terrible example. I need you to come here and fill in for me while I'm away. I've had a word with Rich and he'd really appreciate it too. With the amount he works, he can't run a house and look after the kids too. Ah, good old Richie Rich. Emma's childhood sweetheart, who she wound up marrying at 18. Hilariously, Rich was my first boyfriend, but when we were 10, so I don't hold it against either of them that they got together when they were teens. So you want me to pretend to be you? I ask. Will that even work? Wow, she really does want me for my DNA. Of course it will. You haven't shown your face here for a decade. Most people I know don't even know you exist. Henry is 9 and he's never even met you. Millie doesn't remember you, and anyway, she's like any nearly 16-year-old. She hates my guts and she doesn't look up from her phone. She's basically you when you were that age. Oh my God, is Millie 16 next? I say. It doesn't seem right that my niece is a teenager. The last time I saw her, which is the last time I saw my sister, I think she must have been 4 or something like that. I always send them birthday cards, but I guess I hadn't been counting just how many I'd sent over the years. Yep, it's been a while, Emma says. Only Rich would be able to tell you weren't really me, and Rich will be in on it, so what do you think? God, Emma, I'd love to help you out. I start as I search for the right words. But honestly, I don't know the first thing about looking after kids or a house. My flat was literally destroyed by a fire this morning. Emma laughs. Emma, I'm serious, I insist. Where are you living? She asks. I'm going to check into a hotel tonight, just while I find a new a new flat. I quickly correct myself. Ella, are you homeless and unemployed right now? She asks me in such a parental way, and as if she knows the answer is yes. Ugh, she is literally going to prison tomorrow for being an entitled idiot, and somehow I'm the one coming across as the worst right now. Only temporarily, I say. You worry about your own problems. But our problems have lined up. It's perfect, she enthuses. I need someone to fill in for me. You need a home and a job. Live in my house, look after my kids, turn up to my social events. I have a digital assistant that will keep track of everything for you. I'll pay you, put you on my car insurance, and so on. I mean, unless you want to go to prison for me, it doesn't seem like you have a whole lot of options right now. Family life or prison. I don't know which is worse. She does have a point, though. I really don't have many options. It's interesting how our problems have aligned like this. People always used to ask us about mysterious links between twins, but I always dismissed them because we've always been so different. I just never felt it. I'm still not sure I buy into this being an act of twin chronicity, but when you think about it, it's strange how these things have lined up. Look, if you don't want to do it for me, please do it for Millie and Henry, she begs. We both know what it was like, growing up with a mum who wasn't always there, who left us with issues. Please help me to not screw up my kids. As a cold breeze rushes past me, I tighten my scarf around my neck to keep the chill out. I don't know how many nights in a hotel I can afford, or how quickly I can get another job. Plus, she's right. My mum completely screwed me up. Never mind that my sister's image means everything to her. Just think about how Millie and Henry will be treated for having a mum who has done time. Please, Ella, she says. I can hear a real desperation in her voice. This really, really matters to her. I don't know if she's embarrassed or she feels like she's let her family down or a combination of both, but something in her voice tells me how badly she needs me to say yes. Thinking about it, how hard can it actually be? Take the kids to school, hoover, make them chips. Rich has always been fine. We've always got along well, and it doesn't sound as though he's in much. Emma must have one of the easiest, most comfortable lives going. It'll be the easiest job I've ever had. Okay, sure, fine, I'll do it, I say. But did you say you're going tomorrow? Yes, in the morning. I could call you later tonight and fill you in, and we could come up with a plan together, she suggests. Oh, Ella, thank you. Honestly, you don't know what this means to me. It's fine. It will be nice to see my niece and nephew, even if they don't know it's me, I say. Ella, Emma starts. Yes? I wait a few seconds, but the call is silent again. Hello? Never mind, she blurts. I'll let you go get sorted and I'll call you tonight. Okay, speak to you then, I reply. Gosh, my sister, amazing Emma, the jailbird. I can't believe it. I mean, prison seems a bit extreme, but it kind of serves her right, thinking she can park her big flash car wherever she feels like parking it. I'm not surprised the judge made an example of her. The only thing more surprising than Emma heading off to prison is me agreeing to fill in for her while she's gone. Can I do this? Can I really do this? I mean, I'm sure the day-to-day will be easy, but will people actually believe that I'm her? We've spent our whole lives with basically everyone we know finding it impossible to tell us apart. It was usually our actions that made us more distinguishable, so perhaps it's all going to come down to my acting skills, if I have any. I'm freezing my toes off out here, so I'd better go find a hotel for tonight. If it's just for the night, maybe now that I'm kind of employed again, I can afford somewhere a bit nice, a sort of halfway house to prepare me for going back to the house I grew up in. Yep, it's Emma's house now, but that's another story. Chapter 4. The bath in my hotel room is nothing fancy, but it's a bath, and after the day I've had, a long soak was exactly what I needed. I laid back, relaxed, scrubbed the smoky smell out of my hair, and then climbed into bed. It would have been a completely chilled end to a totally hectic day were it not for the fact that I'm on the phone with Emma again, planning exactly how I'm going to take over her life for her. It's so strange, being on the phone with her, chatting. I was going to say, like normal, but there's nothing normal about taking over your sister's life. You know what I mean, though. Considering I haven't heard from her in years, even having a conversation is a big deal. So my digital assistant will keep track of everything you need to do, so you don't need to worry about that. Just do what it says when it says to do it, she explains. To be honest, I haven't got a clue what she's talking about. What is a digital assistant? Should I be imagining a robot or human at the other end of the internet? I suppose I'll just wait and find out tomorrow. She makes it sound simple at least, and I don't want to look stupid. How much do you actually do in a day? I ask. I'm not having a go. I just can't imagine that either. I've never known Emma to have a job, and it doesn't sound like she needs one. Oh, you know, just keeping the house clean and the kids alive, she says. Suddenly she makes it sound easy, but I can't help but wonder, aren't kids supposed to be a nightmare? And I remember how big that house is. You don't have a cleaner like Mum did then? I say. Oh, we do, but I tend to have a pre-cleaner clean. I feel so guilty having her come in and clean up all our mess, she explains. I just about managed not to laugh out loud at her for saying that. And you'll have Rich to help you when he isn't working, and everything else is easy. Just show your face at coffee mornings, attend a few parents' association meetings. None of it is a big deal, I promise. I like to think that even though we lost touch, I would have helped Emma out if she needed me, no questions asked. but it's hard to imagine me agreeing to doing something like this if I wasn't completely desperate. Do you have any advice for me on how to survive in prison? Emma asks. Oh, charming, I reply, although I do know that thing about punching the biggest inmate on your first day, I suppose, not that I'll recommend that to Emma. Hey, I didn't mean that as an insult, she says. You've always been able to stand up for yourself and for others. I remember when you nearly broke that kid's jaw. He deserved it, I insist, as I did at the time. I've always found it hard not to call out injustice when I see it. I remember in secondary school, one of the bigger Year 11s was bullying one of the smallest Year 7s I've ever seen in my life. He was in the process of tying him to a lamppost in the car park. I asked him to stop. Then I told him to stop. Then I guess I lamped.